Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Wednesday, and we're back for another edition of the Jesus Entrepreneur Collective as we seek your friendship, perhaps your fellowship, and perhaps your participation in a collective which we believe, could be a real transformation, particularly in how we view Jesus, maybe how we view business, and certainly in these troubled and chaotic times, how we can begin to find greater peace of mind. And that is one of the big issues in our world today. The Jesus Entrepreneur Collective. Now, very quickly, this is a book that is new to me, and it's called Jesus Imagination. And he maker, mender, minder, master. And the reason I enjoy this book, and by the way, it's by a new friend who I have never met, but we have a lot in common, it seems out. His name is Leonard Sweet, and his view is that if we want to live well, it's not just our Christian religion or theology or philosophy or career choice, is that Jesus is a model for how to be and how to live our lives, in addition to all of the other qualities of his divinity that we give him. And Jesus had an incredible imagination, and his view is that we should cultivate our own imagination. We should come to the point where we are fully alive. Yes, fully alive and fully empowered by the spirit force that he can bring into our lives. And that not only is a theological and a philosophical and a religious point of view, it is actually a way to live well now in our present situation. And so that's part of what we are all about. And we are hoping to put together a significant amount of teaching, training, coaching, and mentoring that will help people who are willing to not just think out of the box, but to think out of the imagination that God has given them to find and seek new ways to live and to live well. That's what we're about. And then we're going to make it practical. Jesus Entrepreneur is about Jesus and the business world that you have to work and live in. He did that. He was a businessman. In fact, he was in business much longer than he was in, quote, the Jesus mission as we now know it. And what we discover is that in the way he built the movement that becomes the eventual church and the faith that we center much of our activity in, he did all of this in 3 years. And then, after having done the work of planting, seeding, and organizing, and as he would say, do what I do, think like I think, say what I say. As I oftentimes point out, he was a pretty strong leader. I oftentimes challenge business leaders to say, okay, remember, I know about this participative management system and all of that, and it's good to talk and listen to our employees, customers, colleagues. However, Jesus, as far as we know, never turned to the guys and gals, yes, guys and gals, and say, well, what do you think we should do next? He seemed to know what he should be doing, and he seemed to know what he wanted others to do, and he wanted to help them do it the right thing in the right way right now. The right thing in the right way right now. So that's the kind of way we would like to live right now. Now, one of the things that Leonard did in his book and another talk that I saw him do, he said, "Did Jesus sing?" Good question. I love those. Did Jesus have a dog? uh, did Jesus have a favorite food? Uh, did Jesus have a favorite of all of the fellows and gals that he was with? I mean, as my friend points out in another book, he says, Jesus human. All of the things that we experience from getting hungry, getting tired, and all of the things that we have to deal with, he had to deal with in double and triple and quadruple, and do so in a way that reflected the power and the wisdom and the poise of the very Spirit of God that had come to him, that was a part of him, and what he wanted to share with us and us to share with others. Well, Leonard points out that in effect, the last words that he said from the cross actually are based on a psalm, a song. That in effect, what Jesus was doing when he was dying, he was singing. Boy, doesn't that add a new perspective to the story? He was singing. You know, I have discovered, and I've found this from sometimes people who've been fairly successful in life, when I oftentimes ask, is there anything you do that's kind of unusual that has helped you be successful? And I remember one of them said this. He said, Stan, I love to listen to your cassettes. Now that's that dates me. Your cassettes in the car. But then I take them out, and what I love to do is I like to get to my favorite uh, country western radio station, and sometimes kind of the 70s and 80s radio stations, and I sing along at the top of my breath, you know. And he said, it's fun because sometimes people will see me at a stoplight or something like that, and they'll see me kind of singing out loud and enjoying it, whether they hear it or not, and they get this crazy look. What is this guy doing? He said, but here's what I know. Uh, Singing, if you sing it, it's hard to worry. It's hard not to be happy. So I've learned that I should. No, I'm not a very good singer, he said. In fact, that's why I don't really sing that much in public. And sometimes, he said, when I sing too loud in church, my wife looks at me. Now I have that same I have that same issue when I sing too loud, because there's a good chance that I'm slightly off key or off notes. But he said, in effect, I have found that singing is really good for me. Now, is that one of the little tips, like we talked about, your power colors? Maybe the men and women who will do well are those who understand breath control, excitement, energy, presentation, performance that comes from simply learning how to enjoy singing. And so I'm now beginning to ask some of friends of mine who are in the Jesus Entrepreneur Collective to give us lessons in how to sing, and how to sing for yourself, and how to sing well, and how to enjoy singing. That may be one of the top entrepreneurial skills we need to learn. Think about that. Now, while I was listening to the serious thing in my car, the famous past singer, now he's not past, but he had his deal when he was really the singer, you know, Karen and Richard Carpenter. That dates me. But he was talking about Frank Sinatra, and he had an interesting comment. He said, Frank Sinatra was one of those few singers who really knew what songs were his. Of all the songs out there that he could sing, he had a sixth sense. He knew that there were songs that he shouldn't sing. They weren't what he should do. And yet he had an uncanny sense of knowing what were the songs. And by the way, unlike a lot of them, Frank Sinatra didn't write any songs that we know of, that I know of. But when he oftentimes would introduce a song, he had a very, he was a tough guy. He was a tough guy. Uh, but he had a habit of kind of telling the audience who was the arranger, composer of the song. So he gave a tribute to, you might say, the author of the song that he was making hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars singing. And he couldn't have done that if they hadn't written these songs. Now, maybe that's a clue for us. What are some of our songs? Now, there is an old hymn, which I love, which says, "This is my story, this is my song." What is your song? What is your story? Now, that's vital. Hey, have your power colors down. Then, what's your story? Then, what's your song? What are your songs? Maybe that'll tell us something about what will give you energy. Now, just a final note on that, because this is something that also struck me. And I'm trying to discover whether I want to try and do it. Um, many years ago, one of my uncle, who was a very classic and well-known religious composer and organist, his name was Donald Hustad. And he was involved in a program that it may still carry on, but in its original fame and faith, it was actually a live radio program. I mean, live at 10 o'clock on Sunday night. And this was a group of people who got together in a small church outside of Chicago, and they put on a program, and it was called Songs in the Night, which is actually taken from a scriptural reference that God gives us songs in the night. And that was the theme, not only of the program, but understanding that oftentimes it is in the nighttime that people are troubled or worried. And that became very true when later on, many years later, I did a program called Caribbean Night Call, in which the hours were from 11 a.m. to about 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. There was a large audience of people who just had to be, were up late at night. And the music in the night. And so the suggestion was this: before you go to bed, before you rest, and remember now, if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you're going to have to learn how to take a nap, rest. That's right. One of the things I teach entrepreneurs is if you can't sleep very well, learn how to do that. Sleep is vital. But do you remember, supposedly, I was asking my wife Karen about this, and she said, well, I think maybe a little bit, but I'm trying to remember the whole idea of a lullaby. Do mothers do that anymore? Do young mothers sing their children to sleep anymore? I don't know. Obviously, those years are long past for me, but I would still wonder, are lullabies being written anymore? Are there modern day lullabies? Do mothers still sing lullabies to their children? Do any of the fathers? What the research showed, and obviously people will quarrel with all kinds of research, that one of the good habits about sleep and well-being is to actually not only listen to music, But before you go to sleep, sing a song. Song, song, blue. Sing a song. Sing a song before you seek to go to sleep. You know, I think Jesus might have done that. You know, he had to get his rest, and he was busy and hard. I, as my friend Leonard said, he must have known songs because he even sang a song when they were killing him. He must have known a number of songs. And I imagine that when, as I say, the master of the universe uh, uh, went to sleep, there's a very, very good chance that he had a song. Do you want to sleep well? Do you want to do well? Do you want to live well? Maybe you need to start singing a song. Just a thought. As we're seeking not only to be Jesus followers and entrepreneurs, but we're seeking to be really good at being men and women who make their mark in the marketplace. And in effect, what I often point out, what we are, what we're seeking to be, and we'll talk about this in another program. We as Jesus entrepreneurs want to be a peculiar kind of people. Yeah. You want to be peculiar? A peculiar kind of people with a particular kind of power and poise and presence and performance, so that without saying a word, maybe people just know, feel, experience. What do they have that I don't have? How are they different? And as we point out, what Jesus was very good at, he was very good at creating mystery, because he knew that the creating of mystery is a source of relational power and influence. Oh, this gets fun. All the things he knew, not only about living eternally, but living well, as I said, doing it right, doing the right thing, and doing it right now. I'm done. Think about that. Now you're sitting in the car and you turn on the radio, or you turn on, start singing out loud. Enjoy it, and see what happens. Just see what might be. I'm Stan for the Jesus Entrepreneur Collective. I'm here to help you, along with my team of collective colleagues, to live well, to be fully alive, and to make your mark in the marketplace. That's important. Build a business that makes a difference, and build a business that makes Jesus smile. Thank you for listening. Reach out to me at stan@witradio.net, stan@witradio.net. I'm here to speak, mentor, coach, broadcast, and help you be the kind of person you really want to be, and to be that kind of person in the marketplace, and in such a way that you also know that the Jesus man is a part of who you want to be and what you want to be about. If that's part of who you are, if that kind of as I say, is that kind of sits on your head, stirs your spirit, and touches your heart, maybe we should touch base, tune in, and talk to one another. Till then, bye for now.